Everybody, welcome to episode number 60 of the RUDIS Wrestling Podcast. Matt, we got some big news to lead off the show today. And then we're going to get right into our technique after that. So, big news. David Taylor says he is not wrestling Final X. Apparently, he has already had surgery on his knee from the Beat the Streets incident, which then makes Pat Downey our representative at that weight. I guess feelings on that. Go.
I mean, there's a variety of things. Obviously, you can't control the timing of an injury. And I know there's some people talking out there about what could have been, what should have been, what is the reality of it. But, the one thing that you can't decide on is when you get dinged up in the decision that you make. I'm sure there's a variety of decisions. He had to get an MRI. He had to evaluate the extent of the injury. And then in short order with Final X coming up, and even though he had a possible extension available to him up until Fargo to do a belated Final X wrestle off. I'm sure there's so many things that he had to take into consideration, and probably none of them seemed right given the timing of it. But all you can do is control the information you do have, right?
I can't stand the people saying that he shouldn't wrestle and beat the street. Listen, it's a wrestling match. David Taylor's almost never, ever. I can't remember him being hurt anytime in my lifetime. And so, hey, man, it happens. That's, part of the sport. It's unfortunate. It's bad timing, obviously. But for him, I think it's really intelligent for him to have gotten the knee fixed and get healthy as soon as possible. Because we've talked about this multiple times. Final Olympic trials, they're 10 months away. I mean, if it's an ACL, and he hasn't disclosed what injury it is, but if it's an ACL, and I got to assume if it's an LCL or MCL or meniscus, he probably would have either wrestled through it or scoped it or something like that. If it's an ACL, which probably seems most likely, that's a 5 to 6 month process.
Yeah, easy. I mean, I don't want to jump in and speculate, but I had heard things that it might have been more of a meniscus thing. I heard that.
Really? If it's meniscus, he's back right away.
No, not if he repaired it. If he repaired his meniscus.
Who repairs a meniscus at this point? He's 30 years old.
A lot of people do. Seems like
stop.
For sport-specific injuries, I don't think repairing meniscus is the best thing, because that's typically a 3-month recovery process, and the likelihood of you re-tearing it's very, very high.
Not that we're doctors, but I've read the success rate on. For regular people, the success rate on repairing meniscus is not super high. And then, listen, I'm not an expert in all sports, but I can't imagine there's very many sports that are tougher on your knee than wrestling.
Yeah, I think I've read a report where 75% of repaired meniscus tear in the first 3 months after you repair it. I think just by the nature of that surgery, repairing meniscus with the wear and tear and the different, stressors you put on your knee is different than a normal person just repairing that. But anyways, that's what I had heard. If it was an ACL, that's, in a lot of ways, Ben, that's a year to get fully recovered and back from an ACL. But again, this is all.
Matt, I thought it was 6 months. Are you sure it's a year?
Well,
especially a world-class athlete like David.
To get fully back and ready to go, you can recover in less time than that. But to get your pop, get your explosion back, get the confidence in the knee, typically it's about a year process. So,
okay,
for him, if ACL was a chance, he almost had to go under the knife and get the ACL done just to be able to compete by next year.
Yeah, immediately. So I guess the one question I had, and this was, everything was very, you didn't hear anything. I even texted David the day after Beat the Streets. He didn't get back to me. And, it was really, really, really keeping it on the hush hush. But the one thing that I thought, hey, if David's actually hurt, we're going to see Bo Nickal drop down to 86 kilograms, because obviously if you weigh your chances of beating J'Den Cox or beating Patrick Downey, I think you're going to lean towards beating Patrick Downey. And obviously Bo Nickal did it by tech fall. I don't know if it was 1 year ago or 2 years ago at the US Open. I don't recall, one or 2 years ago at the US Open. So I think that you know, I guess that was my thought. Hey, if David Taylor's hurt and he can't go, they're going to send Bo Nickal down because beating Patrick Downey is a whole hell of a lot easier than beating J'Den Cox. And so when Nickal didn't go down, that kind of said, okay, Taylor's going to be back. And then sure enough, 3 days later, he announces, nope, he's out.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not a slight to Pat Downey. I mean, that's just a testament to how good J'Den Cox actually is.
J'Den Cox is a world champion.
He's a world champ, couple-time medalist too. So, yeah, I mean, this probably leads me to believe that it's probably Nickal's intention to go up, not down next year. Because
we assume that, but still getting that. I mean, Matt, whether we like it or not, Bo Nickal's not a gigantic 92. I mean, that's not the way it appears to me. He probably could have made 86. He made 197 all year long. And then on top of that, I understand maybe, okay, next year if David's back, you guys are buddies. Bo's going to go 97. David's going to go 86. That's cool. I get it. But Bo getting that one world championships under his belt, maybe getting a world title, a world medal to his name. I mean, that's Matt, that's a career accomplishment. How many people in America have a world medal to their name? One.
I mean, not many people can say they actually made a team, let alone
made a team.
Team. So this is, I mean, you never know when your opportunity arises. So when you have the opportunity to seize it and make a team, you make it. I just think I think that's his plan to go up. I think that's been his plan all along.
All right, fair enough.
So what do you do? I mean, I don't. You were talking about a little bit of cloak and dagger by David Taylor, not talking about things, but I don't think he should.
Well, that's the Penn State MO. They don't talk about anything.
Yeah, but I'm sure it wasn't
off.
Yeah, but I'm sure it wasn't just relegated to the Penn State camp. I'm sure it was an informed conversation with Bill Zadok, the rest of the national team.
We know he flew to Colorado Springs the next morning.
Right. So I'm sure they were having meetings and discussing possible scenarios and how they play it out and how they want to release it. Obviously, I'm sure right after Beat the Streets, I'm sure David thought, hey, I can get through this. I can come back. Everything's going to be all right, but I got to wait and see. I just can't go out there and say, yeah, my knee's hurt or this and that's hurt.
Yep.
There's got to be a lot of more informed discussion and opinion before you actually come out and make that final decision. And I'm sure,
what, Matt,
scenarios were discussed.
I was just thinking about it a little more deeply. I think if it's a meniscus, even a repair, like you're saying, at 3 months, we are. I mean, when he heard it, and so when he had surgery, we're about 4 months off of slightly over 4 months off of the World Championship. So if that were the case, he would have waited to see how he feels to say I yield the spot, wouldn't he? So it's got to be an ACL.
No, but if there was a timeline, if Fargo was the true drop den.
Dude, they're giving the world champ. Look how late Helen Maroulis got to wrestle off at effing who's number one last year? That was October 7th.
Yeah.
That was October 7th. So, I mean, when was world champions last year? It was end of October. David Taylor's a world champion. They're going to let him have as long as he needs. And they're just going to say, Pat Downey, get ready like you're wrestling. And you're going to have a wrestle off. And if you make it, you know what I'm saying? If the wrestle off doesn't happen, you're still on the team. We're going to pretend you're on the team. So, I'm going to go, and I have no inside knowledge whatsoever. I'm going to go ACL. I'm going to rule out the meniscus.
And I think I mentioned this last week. I think the bottom line decision was what's David Taylor's best opportunity to win an Olympic gold, because this has been his dream his entire life. He's talked about it since he was a kid, winning an Olympic gold medal. He's already checked the box. He's already world champ. So yes. 2 is better than 1. I don't get me wrong. I get that. But ultimately, if you have an opportunity to win 2 at the detriment of your lifelong goal of winning an Olympic title, I think you forfeit the opportunity to win that second world title and focus on the one career objective, the one lifelong goal that you've had, and that's to win an Olympic gold. So I think that was probably the underlying factors. Like,
no, I agree totally.
Think of 2020 and, forget about 2019, which meant, I'm sure there was those discussions, right, Ben? Like, okay, if it is meniscus and we repair it, with the likelihood it could get re-injured, do we really want to even consider
Dog,
2019?
you're not gonna repair a damn meniscus. Liz, we had a kid. Well, multiple people. I can name a bunch of people, but both Mark Ellis and Bubba Jenkins won NCAA titles less than 3 weeks off of. So this means they wrestled in their conference tournament 1 week off of meniscus scoping. So they wrestled in the conference tournament 1 week off meniscus scoping, won NCAA titles less than 3 weeks out of meniscus scoping. Dude, at 30 years old, you're scoping your meniscus.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what else? I mean, you've only got so many years left in your competitive career,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, move on. I mean, the one experience I had, the one high level guy that I had was Ed Ruth. I think some people remember his freshman year when his knee locked up in the NCAA semifinals. He lost that match, and then after the season, he decided to repair his meniscus.
Yeah.
He went same thing, 4 months rehabbing, and within the first month, he retore his meniscus again.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, which at that time he was just a freshman in college, so we were thinking, hey, you still got a lot of tread on the tire. You still have years left in your competitive career. Let's give this a shot, even though we knew that there was a likelihood that he could tear it again. But given his age, we thought the best option was to repair. Now with David, like you were saying, he's almost 30 years old.
Yeah.
We don't know if he's got another Olympic cycle left in him. That remains to be seen. But
yes,
yeah, but back to the ACL, Ben, that's still, I mean, even if we're talking 6 months and he had it, May, July, August, September, October, November. I mean, we're still looking November to November. Just,
Are they doing a U.S. Open next year? Are they doing one of those super early U.S. Opens like they did one time?
We got to look into that. I know we had talked about.
I haven't seen it being announced.
Procedure. I haven't seen it either. So that's probably something we need.
I saw that. Obviously, the trials is in April, which would mean that you'd have to have U.S. Open in December, January, sometime like that.
Which didn't they do that in 2016?
I want to say 2016 they did it. Yes.
Yeah, they had it in
2012 and 2008 was later, and 2004. Those were all later Olympic trials, like a June Olympic trials. So they got to keep the U.S. Open in April.
So do you think we see a lot of guys with that? We need to jump in this because that's
the technique. Yes.
Yeah. Jump into
we should stop speculating about David Taylor's knee and talk about stuff that we
yeah, it is what it is.
No, for sure, the technique.
Yeah, the bottom line, we know what we know. David Taylor's not wrestling at the World Championships this year
sad.
or Final X. It's sad. It hurts our country. The way things are laid out, it looks like Pat Downey's our representative, so we can't complain about that. We can't gripe about he earned the right. I mean, if anybody wants to say it, they should have won the Open and then won the World Team trials. He did both of those. So you can't fault him for taking care of what he can control. So
I 100% absolutely agree. All right. Okay, let's get into this technique. So as everyone knows, you can go see, oh my gosh, Matt, what episodes were they? Episode 52, 53, 54. I'm going to go look it up real quick. So I can tell you, they did the technique on the World Championship. So we're kind of playing off of that.
And so this is the next extension. We're looking at the 2018 U.S. Nationals, U.S. Senior Nationals, men only right now. Right.
I mean, so I did this. I created this project, and I employ a few of my wrestlers to kind of go research the statistics. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. And we got this one done in a lot of in the World Championships. I only had a couple of my guys helping me, and I want to say it took like a month to get it done. This time I got, I think, 5 of them to help me, so it happened quite a bit quicker than for the World Championships. I'm trying to find what episode. Okay, hold on. I believe it's episode 46, 47, and 48, I think is what it is. So if you want to go back and check those out from the World Championships, 46, 47, 48. If you want to go back and check those out, that we're kind of talking. We're going to use our U.S. Open scoring in reference to the World Championships from last year. So just a slight difference, Matt. I just want to talk about the methodology. We did everything the same. except we tried to include a few more matches. So we included all place matches, which doesn't really happen at the World Championships because they have 2 bronzes. So we included first, third, fifth, seventh, and we included the Conti semis, which we did not do at the World Championships. Now, that being said, a handful of the matches on Flow were not archived. So if they were not archived, we did not watch and record those matches, obviously, because we didn't know what happened. A few times there's either a few second late start or something, and so we may have missed the takedown, and obviously we have no other access to any other video, so we can't figure out what that takedown is. We have to leave it kind of blank. And then the last thing I'll say about the methodology is that I do think that we have to revise a little bit. We came up there was just a few situations where it didn't fit perfectly into any of the categories that we had. So I think maybe next time we might create an other category for some of these. I mean, my feeling is in the initial one, we had even more categories, but when there's categories that are getting like 2 points or 3 points, it's just not worth having them. It's excess. So we kind of cut that out. And I think we'll probably do that again. We'll probably put in other categories. So we don't have to have very really specific ones.
Yeah, I think I think we're dialing in the process here. I think this is something a lot of people were excited about when we did the breakdown from the 2018 World Championships. And then leading into this, I think it's going to be a lot more informative, and we're going to dial this in even more after this. I guess the one point of comparison, if you want to do some cross comparison between the World Championships and the US Open, you should probably look at the percentages as
Yes.
opposed to based on the numbers, because
Yep.
World Championships, we did what, from the quarterfinals to the finals?
No. We did round of 16,
Round of 16.
round of 8. So in those brackets, so we did round of 16, round of 8, semis, finals, and then both place matches. So that would have been 8, 4, 2, 1, 17 matches per bracket. Theoretically, in these ones, we should have got 20 matches per bracket, except like I said, that sometimes in some instances, matches weren't recorded on Flow, so we didn't get to record that match. So yeah, I would look from I would look from a percentage perspective as well, though. I think that makes sense. I would say the first thing that just kind of sticks out at me, Matt, is there obviously are more points scored in this one than the last one. And I think, for me, what I'm thinking is not that America is more aggressive, which, I mean, that is definitely a possibility that could be the case, but that obviously the round of 16 at the U.S. Open in most brackets is not as tough as the round of 16 at the World Championships. And the quarterfinals at the U.S. Open is not quite as tough as the quarterfinals at the World Championships. And so there would tend to be more mismatches, which obviously means like, takedown, gut, match over. I mean, we saw that obviously with Alex. Well, Alex Derringer did the whole U.S. Open, takedown, gut, match over. He did it in every single match. But I think, so you see a few more mismatches, so which I think is what leads to the slightly higher scoring of points. Is that?
Yeah, there's probably, I mean, the level of competition is better, which also means depending on who you're competing against also ties into your attack plan, your game plan for the match, how conservative you want to be, how much you're focused on being aware of who you're facing as opposed to moving on to the next round and just getting through the match, getting off the
Yeah.
mat and moving on. And so, yeah.
But so you look at, I mean, the amount of matches is not, like I said, 20 a bracket versus 17 a bracket. But then when you take out the ones we talked about, take out the ones that were not on Flow. I mean, you're seeing at the World Championships, U.S. Open, 640 points off shots versus 477. You're seeing 348 points on defense versus 272. You're seeing 157 on control ties instead of 123. You're seeing almost 400 points in the parterre versus right around 275. So like I said, you are seeing a whole bunch more scoring. So I think the first obvious thing to me is that the number 1 and 2 are still by a mile shot and shot defense. That's,
Yep.
I mean, they're number 1 and 2 by a long shot at the World Championships. They're number 1 and 2 by a long shot at the U.S. Open. It's not even close. So knowing how to get to legs, knowing how to finish when you get to legs, knowing how to stop them from getting to your legs, and knowing how to score when they get to your legs would still be your most important category by a long shot. Does that make sense? You agree?
Yes.
Disagree?
Yep. Makes complete sense. There's
And
a
I
lot of numbers. Yeah. Just this is all cool stuff. No, keep going with what you were saying. I was
okay,
going to jump
and
into
I
something
guess
else.
I would say we saw the at the World Championships. One of the things that we noticed was that there weren't any discrepancies by weight. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, big guys they rarely score this or they rarely score that. Which at the U.S. Open, it's yeah. I mean, again, I'm not seeing a whole bunch of that. Um, the one thing I would say in the shot category, at the three lowest are in the three of the four top weight classes. Not in 92 kilograms, there were a lot of points off shots, but at heavyweight at 97 and 86 were the lowest three. And so then you're seeing, then conversely, um, 57 and 61 are pretty low. The highest ones, which are way above the other ones, are 65, 70, and 74 kilograms are the ones that you're seeing a whole bunch of points off of shots. And I think when you think about who's in those brackets, it kind of, I don't know, kind of makes sense. But so you're not
Yeah.
you
So
get
how would you qualify that with 65 and 70 and 74? Would you qualify that by the individual or by the weight category? Because like you
you
said, there's
yeah.
I mean
Well,
that's probably a
I
lot
don't think
harder
you
to even
can do
really
by
articulate. Yeah.
Well, I don't think you can do by weight category, Matt, because I think if we saw just something directly related to weight, 57 and 61 wouldn't be that low, right? 57 and 61 are really low, and those are our lightest two weight classes. So, I am saying, hey, there's less points scored at the higher weight classes, but then, you're seeing in the middle weights there's a whole bunch of points scored, but then at the lowest weight class, 57 and 61, we're not seeing a ton of points scored. In off shots. So that's I don't know. Yeah,
And
I guess what I'm saying is no discrepancy by weight class.
yeah, and we saw similar trends at the World Championships too. That logical assumptions that you would think, given a weight class, didn't necessarily turn out to necessarily be true. And this kind of the pattern kind of extends here into the U.S. Open. So that kind of just
Yeah.
validates some of the things and some of the theories that we were discussing at the World Championships as well, that you can't just limit and define certain techniques to given weight classes.
Yes. 100%. Excuse me, I burped. So okay, let's keep going. So in the neutral position, one of the things I did find interesting. So we said both in shot defense, control tie, there was a whole bunch more points scored. The one of the things I did find interesting at the World Championships, although there was less total points scored in the push out category, the shot clock category, and the penalty category, there was a lot more points scored. So I'll just give you those numbers. It's 150 versus 128 for pushouts. It's 82 versus 42 for shot clock, which that seems like a shit ton to me. And then 53 versus 29 for penalty, which also seems like a big discrepancy, especially when you're considering that there was more points scored at the World Championship. So I think with the shot clock, I can't really just tell you why the push out and penalty were different, Matt. With the shot clock, I think it's obviously we talked about there's more equal competition, right? People are more evenly matched, and so you get more 0-0 type matches. I mean, would that be an accurate representation, you think?
Yeah, I think so. And also your attitude when you're put on the shot clock, right?
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
I think the higher level you go, the more inclined people are willing to give up that point and not putting themselves at risk while they're on the shot clock, because strategically it's not in their best interest to be over aggressive, where they could, when they have to do the math in their head, well, if I'm over aggressive, I could possibly give up two instead of just giving up one.
Yeah.
So maybe the mentality and the strategy based on the given situation, in the match kind of determines your aggression or lack thereof to wrestle maybe to the score on the scoreboard and not the position you're in with being
Yeah.
on the shot clock, if that makes sense.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. Um,
we're here.
Maybe Matt. Maybe the answer is people internationally are less aggressive. I think that I don't know that that accounts for everything, but I think that's a possibility that has some effect on what we're seeing in the scoring here.
Yeah, and I
Do you
think
think?
I think maybe specifically in the shot clock, when you're talking about the US Open, a lot of these guys are less mature. They have less true international experience. Their freestyle their
Yeah.
freestyle
Oh,
is
yeah. The US Open,
basically conditioned
which
to their domestic experience. So,
which
here in the United States, and we're always like score, score, score. Especially when the shot clock automatically triggers those situational experiences in practice, right?
well,
Down
but
by
yeah,
down by one,
but
30 seconds on the clock.
the other thing, Matt, is if you're seeing scoring, you're not seeing a shot clock. Right? If the
True,
score is four
true.
4-2, they're not putting you on the shot clock. They're almost, which in my opinion is a stupid way to do the rules. I mean, if someone's stalling, someone's stalling. It doesn't have to be only when the score is 0-0. Um,
Well,
it,
that opens up back to the officials, back to our
oh, don't
conversation
get me
last
started.
week, where
They'll
these
come
guys
up with that.
they go back and forth. Like, I don't think they really a lot of times truly understand who's dictating match position.
Well,
Uh,
you know the line they always use on me, Matt, the one that pisses me off. They say, "Oh man, I'm gonna get the wording wrong." They say passivity is not trying to score; it's not scoring. Which I think is like the most absurd thing, but they've given me that line multiple
what do you
times.
what does that mean?
It
Say
means
that
Matt.
say
It
that
means so
again.
okay. I'll tell you. So okay, 'cause there's a handful of matches. My guy is chasing the other guy all over the mat. There's no score, so the other guy gets passive, put on the clock. My guy gets a point, right? Okay, my guy's still chasing the other guy all over the mat. There's still no score. Then they put my guy on the clock, and I say, "Why the hell was my guy put on the clock? He's chasing the guy all around the damn mat. Put the other guy on the clock again. He's not doing nothing." And they say, "Well, passivity is actually not trying to score; it's not scoring."
Yeah, that
So
sounds like
because my guy does not have the ability to score because the other guy's running away, he gets put on the clock. It's absurd, but that's what they allege the official definition is.
yeah. Sounds like
Allegedly.
something to conveniently give them a scapegoat for the situation, right?
Yeah, uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah, that's not yeah.
But
Anyways,
so obviously, so to the point being is if there is a score on the board or multiple scores, they're not getting put on the shot clock. Which we go back to level of wrestling and say that round of 16 or the round of 8 isn't quite as high as at the U.S. Open as the World Championship. So there's more likely to be scores on the board early, which means then more likely to have less shot clock points.
yep.
Okay. Um, so the other thing here, and you were kind of getting into it, Matt, and so I would say the number one biggest difference, for me when I look at it, and I don't, I okay, I can read these off. I don't. I should have listed these ones because I knew this was me something to bring up. But as far as defensive scores are concerned, Matt, they none of them. So both at the World Championship and the U.S. Open, there's none of them that are like way, way, way out above everything else. Okay, they're all kind of in a pack. But the way they were in a pack at the U.S. Open is all jumbled up from the way they were at the World Championship. So I'll give you an example. And this goes to what you said about a lot of guys having more domestic folk style experience than having international freestyle experience. At the World Championships, getting shot. So we're talking shot defense. The number 4 shot defense was a dump. You shoot in, you get crotch lifted, chest locked, something to that. Whereas dump at the U.S. Open was number 1. Do you find you? So you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
People aren't as familiar with that. I mean, that's exactly what you're saying. People aren't as familiar. They have more of a folk style background, so they shoot in a little haphazardly and they get dumped on their back. So at the U.S. Open, from shot defense, that is your number 1. But at the World Championships, that's your number 4. I thought that was a pretty interesting, and maybe if we thought deeply about it, probably something you and I would have predicted.
Yeah, because I think when we're talking about domestic freestyle, and a lot of these guys are either fresh from college, so their
Mm-hmm.
game's not quite as tight, right?
No,
Um,
absolutely
in,
not. I mean,
in, in,
that
in
takes a
folk
while to
style,
feel that out.
we have a lot of leg passing and different things, and you know, giving up back exposure isn't penalized in folk style. And so it for some of these guys, it takes them a while to dial it in and get and understand how they've got to tweak the wrestling, not change the wrestling, but tweak it to fit the scoring system in freestyle.
Yep.
So I think guys are just a little looser in their defensive positions. They're willing to roll around more. They're giving up exposures to put themselves in a position to counter the leg attack. But yeah, I would say that's maybe where we see a correlation between the advantages and disadvantages of folk style and freestyle, correct? As
Yeah.
opposed to
100%.
only wrestling one style all the time.
Yep. Yep. 100%.
I mean, that's the
And
only. I mean, do you have anything else? That's the only. That seems like
no,
a simple,
yeah.
a simple thought, but I think it's
No,
probably the correct.
I think that makes perfect sense. I mean, well, but then to go to I guess to go to the other side of, and this would kind of lead into that same answer, is that at the World Championships, the number one score defense shot defense was a down block go behind, whereas that was number 4 at the U.S. Open. So obviously, um, if your baseline defense is better and they're not getting to your leg, right? So by definition, remember, sprawl stuff go behind is they get to your legs, you stuff them, you go behind them. A down block go behind is you down block, so they don't even get to your legs. You down block, you run the corner, you score there. So at the World Championships, we see that's the number 1 defensive shot defense category. So obviously, if they're not getting to the legs and you're running behind them, you have no idea. You don't even give yourself an opportunity to score off of a dump. Therefore, that category is going to be lessened, right? So at the World
And this
Championships
goes
level, basic positioning is better.
right, and I would say in the United States, and tell me if you have another thought, but when basic fundamentals are taught in wrestling, I would say the majority of people in kids clubs and even up through high school, your first line of defense is a sprawl where they're touching your legs
Yes.
and you have to defend, as opposed to internationally, and I think even more higher level domestically here, your first line of defense is your head and your hand. Like don't
Well,
let
yeah.
them touch your leg, period.
But I mean, Matt,
Where
down block go behinds have evolved in the last 5 years, and you watch some of these guys who are really good at it. It's just so amazing the way they can execute on it.
I mean,
And
You look at Zane, you look at all. I mean,
Zay
not
Zayn's so good at it. J'Den, oh my gosh. I mean, there's so many. Nick Soriano's pretty well. Nick Soriano does a lot more reshots maybe than down block go behinds, but kind of the same concept. You're not letting them get to your legs. So yeah, I mean, listen, Matt, at my practices, pretty much every practice I run at AWA, we do some type of down block go behind because it's such a vital skill to have. Really, really, really important.
I mean, it's really simple, but it's so applicable. You just tell your guys it's simple math. If they can't touch your leg, they can't
Yes,
score, right? So
yes,
why even open up the door of the possibility? Why sprawl? Why defend a leg attack? Why establish your baseline defense when you don't
yeah,
have to? Get your head defense going, hands defense going, and like you said, I think the evolution of this technique we've seen in spades from all these high level guys is, you know, head
yeah.
block, down block is the way to go.
Well, and well, I mean, at both of these charts, number 5 on shot defense, which is there's only 6 categories. So number 5 in both of them is sprawl stuff go behind. So we see that is obviously a much less used technique. You just don't score a whole lot of points from there because people know how to stop that. And so yeah, I mean, I would say, and so, the scramble points from the U.S. Open are number 2, and I believe they're number 3 at the World Championships. So, I mean, in my club, we do, I mean, number 1 is down block go behinds. We teach the crap out of those. And then, then we do a lot of scrambles. So I think, sprawl is obviously we teach it, but there's just so many guys who, I mean, think of like a Ryan Deacon, James Green. When Deacon actually gets his hands locked on your legs and he's just able to suck it in, there's so many guys that are really good there that at that point, your sprawl is just not going to work. If you didn't down block go behind, they get their hands locked on your legs, they're going to suck you in and they're going to get to their score one way or the other. I mean, am I making any sense there?
No, you're playing with fire, right? I mean, you may
Yes.
be able to fend off a guy once or twice, but he gets his hands locked, 2, 3, 4 times. He's probably going to convert at least half of those.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know what would be
Absolutely.
interesting to me, and this is maybe
Let's-
going way down the rabbit hole, and this is probably
I love the
perfectly
rabbit
in
hole.
in your wheelhouse, is the type of scrambling. in these situations.
We
I
tr so
know.
we tried, Matt, we tried to do that actually on our initial thing. We tried to do it, and it was just and that's, you know what? I've tried to multiple times in my life. I've tried to make like a scrambling flow chart. And the issue is there's just like it's not A B C D E, right? It's not that simple. It's always like A could go to D, D could go back to B, B could go to F, and it's just like this weird thing. And so to actually like put it on paper, whether you're trying to write out techniques or whether you're trying to put it in a thing like a scoring chart, which we actually tried, it was a disaster. It really
Yeah,
was. Like there was
because with
so hard.
traditional leg attacks, you have right setup, shot, finish, and
Yes.
there's variations to that, but typically it follows more of a sequential order. Where
Yes.
within
Yeah.
scrambling, like you said,
It
A
was
to
really
J,
hard.
J to B, C to
Yeah.
D, and it just so many. It's so interchangeable and so fluid in those positions that it can't really be
Yeah.
defined or segmented out in a certain way. But it's, I mean, it's interesting. I'm sure you've thought of you know, the
Yeah,
different
no,
things,
no, we
scoring.
tried to. I really wanted to do that in our first go around, and man, we started doing it, and it was a disaster. So I said, let's just pull back on this. Okay, let's go to shot category, Matt. I think there's one interesting thing, and so guys, we'll be putting up all these charts. Matt and I are only do one episode on the U.S. Open scoring, but we will be putting up all these charts, so you can look through them. You can come up with your own conclusions. You can tweet at us. You can tell us what you think. You can tell us where you think we're wrong on shots. Okay. Single and double are, again, way out in front of everything else, which I thought was interesting. Um, this one, single being higher than double, whereas at the World Championship, double was higher than single, but they were both, I mean, they're both close. I don't think that's that interesting that those flopped. Number three was a high crotch. Number three is the high crotch to the US Open. Now, here's where I think it's interesting. If you look from a percentage perspective, which is kind of what you said, a knee pull and a low single are way, way, way more scored on at the U.S. Open than at the World Championships. Those techniques at the World Championships are very, 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 very low. I mean, we're talking what's 1/7, Matt? What's that, like 10%, 12%, 14%, somewhere in there? Um,
Yep.
they're like 1/7 of your single leg and your double leg scores, whereas at the U.S. Open, they're more like a quarter to a third. So we're talking a gigantic percentage raise.
Huge,
And man, I
huge.
don't really have a reasoning behind that. I don't really, when I see that, I don't really know what that means or why that exists. You got any theories?
Not
I
really off the top of my head. Not
Yeah.
I could give you simple things that I think, but this is where, and we talked about this at the World Championships. We actually need a sample size. Right now, we've got 2 points of analysis, but you
Yeah.
almost need,
You need
you know,
more. Yeah, you're right.
years to really to give any concrete theories behind
Yeah,
what
that's
it
true.
would be. Um,
Because maybe this is a one-time thing. I mean, maybe we're having just a couple guys, who are scoring on your your knee pull or your low single. I mean, I know it's kind of spread across the board. I mean, besides again heavyweight and 97, or yeah, heavyweight 97, which not there were no points at either of those weights scored on knee pulls or low singles. You're pretty much seeing the points spread fairly well across the board of the different weight classes. And so just definition wise for me and Matt, I'm sure the same. A knee pull would be it's a inside step you grab and then
inside.
you wrap like a single leg. So the inside step is first, not the outside step like you would on a single leg. And obviously a low single is you're shooting a single leg below the knee.
And I think with the low scoring percentage at the upper weights with the knee pull and the low single, that's pretty much fundamental coaching that you don't, even with the knee pull, you're most likely getting caught underneath a big guy.
Yes.
And
Knee
that's not
pull's a
where
little
you
more
want to be.
finesse. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. You just can't afford to get under Kyle Snyder. You can't afford to get under, Adam Kuhn. He's going to squash you there. So
Mm-hmm. Yep.
you're the upper weights are typically taught, hey, we don't want to get on a low level attack or even a knee pull, even if you get your hands locked. Why? Because now you're you're defending the brunt of this guy's entire weight. And
Yes.
so I would say that's just from a teaching standpoint, that makes sense to me. the percentages in the upper weights are so low because these upper weights are taught, don't get in these positions, don't put yourself there.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, last thing, Matt, and again, we're gonna put all these graphs up so you can go research them, read them, come up with your own conclusions. So
And
I thought it was
we will actually have, I want to throw this out there before we wrap up the episode. We're going to have extended graphs. So we're going to post some with the episode
boom.
here right after, and then throughout the week we're going to provide more in-depth graphs that have more specific breakdowns in each one of these areas.
Yeah, and I mean that's what I'm looking at right now, and I love it. So I thought this was really interesting, Matt, for the last couple categories, they were all the same. So, for example, single leg finish, number one was a high level finish. Number two was cut the corner at both World Championship US Open. For a high crotch, number one was a drive across, which I've started teaching more of since I realized how important it was. Number two was a crackdown, which is the same at both tournaments. And then number three would be from the setups, the middle tie, right? So middle tie for me was between your wrists and your collar. That would be number one by a long shot at both. Your open tie, which means maybe you're touching hands or posting, but you're not like touching each other, is your number two setup for a shot. Big gap between the 1 and 2 there. And then another big gap to number three, which is your control tie. So meaning you're shooting off of a 2-on-1, an underhook, an over under, something like that. So I thought in those three categories, I think it's really interesting that all of the things follow the really similar pattern of how things are done in both the US Open and the World Championships. And now, between both these things, we're talking roughly 400 matches. So I know we're talking about getting a larger sample size, but Matt, 400 matches, that's fairly significant.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting when we get in these situations, the parallels that seem consistent throughout the world, as opposed to we've seen some discrepancies. So it seems like the way people are getting to legs and the way they're finishing once they get to the legs, there are some parallels, globally. And then I
Yeah.
think the more we dive into the domestic tournaments and international tournaments, we may get a better understanding of the types of shots, why certain types of shots are used more
Yeah.
prevalently than
I mean,
other areas.
honestly,
So
yeah, I don't know what we would have to do, like, to, why we say a knee pull and a low single is significantly more used in America than in other countries. How would you even study that, Matt?
I don't even know. That's
I don't even know how you, I don't
that's
even
what
know
we
how
got
you
your
would break
money.
that down.
That's what we got your money ball people up in Wisconsin for.
Well, why would you? I mean, it would just have to be the prevalence of it being taught. I would think, because the one thing I love about wrestling is that and this is what I hate about like a jiu-jitsu, is in wrestling there's so much competition. Stuff bears itself out. If what you're saying works, if it really works, people are going to see that and they're going to start using it. If it doesn't work, they're going to know you're lying and they aren't going to use it. And so we don't rely on tradition and the way things have always been done nearly as much, because, hey, man, if I see an Oklahoma State kid using this move and they're all using it well, hey, I'm going to say, hey, maybe I should try that move. And so, if the United States we have a lot of guys usefully using both the low single and a knee pull, and Russia sees that, they're going to steal those techniques. And so, and I know obviously we've done that with other countries or other people. And so I think that's, yeah, I don't know. I have no explanation for why it's so much more relevant in America than in other countries.
But this is part of the fun, though.
Yeah, it's part of the fun. Absolutely.
Trying to figure out why. What's the why behind all these things? And
Eh,
I think we're starting to scratch. We're still scratching the surface. Have a
Yes.
much bigger sample size now, but the way it'll be fun as we dig into this more and more, that
Yes.
we develop more theories. I would like to hear other people's thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I say. If people want to tweet us or whatever, I mean, obviously there's a lot of smart people out there. So, and I had, like, you and I both had multiple people stop us at the US Open. I mean, I probably had almost 10 people stop me and, start talking about what they thought about certain specific instances on the one we did for the World Championship. So I thought that was a lot of fun.
No, it's a ton of fun, and that's the thing. We don't have the answers yet, so it's
We don't,
open
and
for
we
speculation.
It's
So
open. It's totally. You cannot change the numbers, but the theories are open for speculation. Okay, Matt. When we come back next week, we have a special presentation for everybody. We're going to break down the technique behind some of the really important Final X matches, which will be a lot of fun. And we're going to, and then our other episode, we're going to talk about UWW cadets and U23s, which are happening this weekend in your home state, Askren, Ohio.
sounds like fun. Look forward to it, Ben. And
All right.
we will talk to you later.